Angry skeleton noises. Hello. Get everything going here. There we go. Angry skeleton noises. There we go. Just making sure everything's working all good. So, as you can probably already kind of deduce, I'm doing a style study. Yes, one of my fabled style studies. A thing that's been passed around from not generation to not generation to me. Because I'm the first of my kind. My skeleton boy kind to decide that, hey, I'm gonna pick up a pen and I'm gonna draw crud. So basically, as some that have probably have watched the Fujimoto style study a while back, I do these sort of um, explorations of different artists' works and stuff like that, and of course it doesn't always necessarily include just you know mangaka and stuff like that. It's also kind of you know I also do it for like video games and stuff like that. That as well as I might do it for like movies and stuff like that too. Style study is just in general a celebration as well as a look through of different art styles and stuff like that. And of course, that includes pen and ink stuff, painting, film, video games, because every artist kind of has their own things and touches and stuff like that they put into their work. Like you got different artists like Kojima, for instance. Metal Gear is specifically his baby in a lot of ways, and there's different things that he does with the long cutscenes as well as what else does he do? Like it's kind of overly maybe not convoluted per se, but yeah, no, maybe a little bit convoluted, but in a good way. Over convoluted gameplay and stuff like that that's meant to kind of give you the experience that is a little more maybe real, I guess, maybe. I say that while talking about Kojima, the man that literally put a woman in a bikini and gave her, specific powers that, require physics and, bikinis and being in, skimpy tight outfits and shizness. The Kojima way. And of course, flips, tricks, and crazy, cool, fun combat and dialogue and stuff like that. Because that's just kind of that's the Kojima way. And I guess with Silent Hill, it's like the overly surreal kind of industrial style as far as with the music as well as with the gameplay as well and environments and stuff in that. Well, today we are going to go over a artist that I think maybe 5% of the population knows. I obviously one of the biggest anime franchises, everyone knows the man, the myth, the legend behind said, you know, masterpiece of anime that is, and it's backwards, but Hajime Isayama. Isayama? Isayama? I am absolutely butchering this. I apologize. But we power on. We power on. on. We power on and we study Mr. Hijime, artwork and stuff like that because that's what we do around here with my, you know, flesh eyesight hands, oh, you know, gotta, gotta show you the hands, a little bit, give you some nice finger noises, because we're just, you know, gotta, give you them fleshy noises. Oh gosh, that actually just sounded kind of weird. Um, Forget I said that as I'm, live streaming to 0 people in the audience, Oh, and anyone who sees the video afterwards, yeah, we make weird noises around here. How does a skeleton man, boy, dude from another dimension, in the mind, boy, man, skeleton? How do we make funny noises with the lack of lips? That's a mystery. That I'll leave that up to you guys. Nice. But yeah, we are going to kind of go over some different stuff as far um as I'm mostly gonna be focusing in here on Titan of Attack, and I got my little tabs, my terribly made poster note tabs that a professional does not make. I I've nicknamed tips of mine the unpro tips. Cause we ain't you know we ain't a comic book man here. I'm not a manga maker, dude. I'm an unprofessional art skeleton man on boy thingy on the internet. That so we don't do things that are by the book necessarily. We do things from a book, and that is what we're doing here today. A Just like the Fujimoto style study, pretty much I looked through books and pages and things like that from the works of the author I'm talking about. Now, I guess in this case, I'm not as familiar with Mr. Hajime's work and all that. At least not in the same way that I feel like I'm with Fujimoto's stuff, where I've bought just about every single thing that man and master of aviation has made. But with Attack on Titan, I own quite a few books of that, and I'm still kind of collecting everything. Which it's a longer series, so it takes a little bit of time. But that's kind of the one I'm the most familiar with. Um, I'm trying to remember if the same guy that made this was the one that made Death Note. I may be thinking of the same animation director, not the author. Um, Crucify me in front of the public if I'm wrong, because I give you full right to. I'm a skeleton man. I'll live through it. I can take it. I can be crucified. Cause I'm a skeleton man and I won't die. And this is the internet, so it's not real. But and we're in the mind, so yeah. Unreality. But yeah, we're just gonna basically just go through some of the little tabs and notes and stuff that I've kind of put throughout my book. Um, and pretty much what I plan on doing with that. And of course, I got my coloring book there because, I'm a grown adult. I like coloring books. But yeah, basically, we're going to go through different panels, look at different pages, and just kind of get an idea of the little nuances and in the work of Mr. Hajime. A and pretty much just kind of go through and just kind of see what he does at different points. So basically, as far as the things that I've sort of noted down while looking through his work, we got things like outlines. We got things. I might even kind of write these things down on the little paper here. That way we got an idea of these things. We got things like outlines. So outlines. You're not gonna be able to see that because it's backwards. But unless I decide that I'm gonna do pro gamer move and and attempt to write that backward. There we go. Wonderful. Outlines. Outlines. I'll probably put that as a thing. Maybe if I edit this down to a smaller video, maybe I'll put some little things to divide everything up. And basically, we also have things like, let's see, how would I write that backwards? 2, 2, 1. Yeah, that's professional right there. 2 to 1 page. 2 to 1 page. Spreads. Because we are professional here. Nothing says professional like looking like I write like a 5th grader on meth. And so basically we have things like outlines, 1 to 2 page spreads, as well as motion. Let's see if we can write M-O-T-I-O. Shun. There we go. We got this, boys and gals, and everything in between. We got this. I can write backwards, because this absolutely is backwards. See, if I'm writing, so I'm going to write forwards. But it's backwards. I feel like a cat scratching at this thing. But yeah, we can write forwards and backwards and make it not look like, I have a brain aneurysm going on. But yeah, so we have motion, 1 to 2, 2 to 1 page spreads, outlines, basically things that, as far as like how the characters are outlined against the backgrounds and stuff like that. And then we also have faces. you know, faces. Bum bum bum. So basically, we got everything from motion, faces, to to giant spreads in the pages, as well as things like body shapes and stuff like that. So we got let's write down what we got in our lesson plans today. Hey, show body shapes. Hey, we judging them bodies around here, as well as effects. So let's write down in our absolutely perfectly written. There we go. Effects. So we got everything. So this is our wonderful. Let's see. Let's see. How do we write that? Backwards. Let's see. Lesson. Lesson plan. So yeah, we have our lesson plan for today, boys and gals. Everything from how characters are outlined to 2 to 1 page spreads. It's motion, faces, body shapes, and effects. Because this is something that I noticed while kind of style studying these things and all that in my spare time. And absolutely didn't, just, put a bunch of random shiz into my books, 5 minutes before stream, because we do things professionally here in this unpro tips world that I got here. Alright. Right. Enough rambling and everything like that. We can get into things. So, I think what we'll do ultimately is start, I'd say, let's see. What do we want to do? So, honestly, I think faces is probably a good place to go first with this because honestly, that's literally one of the main things that most people kind of notice whenever or try to draw a lot of times whenever they're doing their own artwork and stuff like that is faces. Everyone's got a style for how they draw their characters and everything like that. I mean, you can see in well, there we go. There we go. So I kind of look like, a mix of grungy punk artwork from something like Tony Hawk on a skateboard mixed with like hatching lines from like an old Dr. Seuss book or maybe a Berserk manga or something like that with some Tim Burton-y things and all that stuff in my design too. Well, you know, a lot of characters and stuff like that for like for a lot of characters have their own design and everything as far as like what they look like and everything. And of course Mr. Hijime is is not any different from any other person, and I think this would be a good page to start on here. And of course, it might be a little hard to see. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a closer look. We might need to move. Actually, that was probably an okay spot, honestly. So basically, what's kind of neat about Hijime's overall style when it comes to faces is that you can tell he is someone that has a lot of I guess variation in some ways. He has variation in how he draws the faces and stuff like that. And I think it's one of those things when it comes to anything anime and manga related that some people can have a little bit of like a same face syndrome, as they call it. Um, I'm not exactly a stranger to that by any means with my own artwork, or at least at one point. I think I've gotten a little bit better as far as drawing faces and stuff like that. But it takes some time to kind of get to that point, like to where, yeah, because you get comfortable doing specific things with your art, and it's a little scary to kind of go out there and try to find something new because you don't want to stray too far from what you're used to. Ew. But I feel like that's part of the journey in a lot of ways. Nice. And we could probably even find there's probably a page or two here as well. That's kind of there we go. We got one here too. That's a little bit bigger. So basically, one of the things that, and this is where when it comes to Hijame's designs and stuff like that, is that he is definitely someone that has gotten down face structure in a lot of ways. So so this is, I think, if I remember correctly, this is an earlier point in the series. I think this is maybe volume 1, I think, or maybe somewhere between volume 1 to 3. But you can see that of course we have old Armin here. And you can see with Armin's face, he's got a very apparent chin going on here. Like, so one of the things that I've picked up myself as far as when it's come to drawing faces, and anime is a really good place to find to do that as well, is and look into things like that, is that you want to have a clear defined facial structure for both females and males. And I think a good way to differentiate males and females in a lot of ways when it comes to faces, and Hijime does that here, is with Armin. You can see he has a very defined collarbone that kind of goes across there and then has a sharp turn upwards. Whereas with Mikasa over here, you can tell that it may be that it's a little more apparent if her hair was out of the way, but I feel like with her, the chin kind of goes and the face goes all the way around like that. There's a lot more curvature and less angles and stuff like that in the faces here. And so that's one of the ways that I feel like Hijime kind of goes in and makes differentiations between it, and that's just as simple as male and female as far as with how they look and everything like that. That, but then it's going back to that panel here. Here, you've got different things that kind of differentiate, and there's different variations on the male face too. Like with Armin's face being kind of angular, kind of like in that previous panel being angular with a sharp curve up. There's characters that have that here too, as you can see, curve, sharp angle up, and then of course, and it looks like that actually that one actually has you don't see it as much there. Here. Now, of course, it's not that females don't have that little that have a sharper line up here. Like Annie here has a more defined jawline in her, but but with her, it's not quite as sharp. There's that curve and a slightly sharp angle with her. At least that's if you're wanting to define having more defined jaw features on a woman and still kind of keep it within in that same bone structure and everything like that. And I feel like that's something that Hijime has down here too. So it's like you have things like Annie having a more defined jaw line, but it's still being somewhat rounded like Mikasa's. But then you have some of the other characters, there's two, that kind of have Armin's same facial structure. But then you also have ones that have a more like the jaw is a little more rounded, but it still has that sharp angle there. And it's like each jaw from his to his to his to his, they all are different in a lot of ways. Eh, ways. They're different in ways that I feel like gives a lot of different things like each character's face has a different structure that allows you to be able to tell them apart in a lot of ways. So like I guess a bit like I can probably do we have ones that go like a more defined jaw, more angular, more angular like that jaw. But then you also have, you know, angle with a little bit more of a pointed chin in here rather than a more squared chin, and like some characters have like I might like look like I think for this I'll kind of draw it a little bit too here. Yeah, because I feel like when it comes to these style studies, it's good to actually draw it yourself in a lot of ways. It's, and I could do this in a program of sorts, but at the same time, I feel like while you could do that in a program, it's good to also draw it by hand too. Oop, getting shaky there. So we'll draw um we'll draw him. And we'll draw my dude over here. Here. I'm forgetting names. I do absolutely apologize for that. For the 5% of fans that are gonna care that I said a character's name wrong. Um, but yeah, we're gonna draw all that face. So basically, we're starting with kind of a base face there. And of course, he's got his ear right up here, and then ear. Of course, remember angle. And even he has a little bit of a curved angle to that. It's not, it's like, it's a sharp angle, but it's not like new, there's more definition and curvature to that, as well as, you know, the little, tiny little anime chin there. 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 Draw draw the place for the eyes. Get his hair. And then, so another thing that's kind of interesting about his faces and stuff like that are noses. So this is might just be an anime thing and manga thing too, but there's, depending on the angle that you get a character at, you might get either a full nose drawing like up here. You can like, we'll go back to that. We'll go back to a page or two. Let's see. Where's that panel? Maybe it's that sneaker panel. The panel's snaking away from me. And when I needed it most, it vanished. Yes. When the world needed this panel most, it vanished. Here we go. So we got a good example. It's a different example. So basically, like from this angle, so from what it looks like, and the shadows are determining this too. And depending on how much light and shadow is in a scene, you can usually see the nose in its entirety here. Like, see, you can see the full curvature and break in the nose, as with down here with Annie. Annie, you can also see that too. You can see from sides or areas where the shadows are a lot heavier, you'll see a full nose and everything like that. But then you might also have those same panels over here where like his nose, I'll just keep drawing that because it makes more sense to just draw it on here. Here you can basically see that there's he's got a nose, but there's space there. There. You don't see the full nose, and that could be a thing of like maybe there's a spotlight that there. If it were a movie, this would be like spotlight against a black background or something like that. So there's probably gonna be the lighting itself is not always gonna be showing you either every single detail. Actually, I might need to move that over just a teensy bit. Move that over a teensy bit. And that nose needs to be all the way over here. What are you doing over there, nose? So we got his. And one thing that's kind of interesting is that, and this is something I noticed about Fujimoto's artwork too, and this might be old information to some extent, but still new to those just kind of tuning in. But Hijime also does this too. But you can basically tell when it comes to eyes, like down here, here. Actually, might be better to have a more closer angle. But it can be a little bit of a toss-up sometimes, whether you have an eye that's just like a tiny little pupil with the iris around it, or you have an eye that maybe has, I might do that over here. Like you might have an eye that can be just, just a, shade in it and all that stuff. Or some eyes you might have an actual pupil there and you actually see those details and everything. And it could be a toss-up, I guess, depending on like the lighting of the scene and everything like that, or maybe there's an effect with the eyes that Hijime wants to show. But Hijime does that too, in the same way that Fujimoto does. Now, Fujimoto's got a little bit of a different way of doing things. But basically, the main things that I kind of take away from Hijime's overall like way he draws characters and stuff like that is he's got variation in facial structure, different angles might show more of the nose lines and everything like that, or you have eyes that end up either being like, for instance, it's probably gonna be a little tough to see here, but there's a clear distinction between Armin's eyes and Mikasa's eyes. Armin has more of those eyes that are like this, where you actually see the pupil, where Mikasa's eye in certain places just looks like it's like there's not a lot, it's just shading and stuff like that. Which I feel like the reason for doing that is that you can maybe see more of Armin through his eyes and everything like that. With Mikasa being a bit more quiet, reserved character, she doesn't let as much of herself show. And they always say that the eyes are a window into the soul. So, in a sense, you're almost getting less of a view inside of her, or when you can't see her, when you can't exactly see every bit of her expressions and stuff like that. That's just one aspect though of this kind of thing. So faces. We got faces is pretty much good and done on the on our lovely little checklist of things. Body shapes. We'll do body shapes next. Next, as far as looking over things like that. Let's see. I just gotta find where I think I have it written down. I'm gonna say body types. I think I have it in the other book. Other book. Look, move it into frame a little more. Body shapes. There we go. I have it written down here. All right. So body shapes. This is something that there's actually a couple of different panels for this, but I feel like and this may also just be a element of earlier parts of the story, but I feel like Hijime has he kind of goes along with a similar style of anime and manga drawing where the characters are a lot more lanky. Like, you can definitely tell that they're a little bit thinner, they're a little bit taller. Their proportions are a little different than some animes and stuff like that. Like, you got a little bit more gangly dangly arms and legs, and even in this panel here, you can kind of see that even more so too with Eren. It's like, and it may even be the perspective too that might give this impression. But it's like his arms are really thin. You can definitely tell that his legs are like really kind of the way that they go down. It's like it feels like it gets smaller as you go down the foot. But when it comes to let's see, here's another area here. I'll move that a little bit. You can kind of get Armin, Mikasa, and Eren's bodies in this shot. Alright. Their chest is about maybe right about there, but then their torso is just that teensy bit thinner looking. And even without seeing the full body, you can tell that and this might also just be the age of the characters at the time too, but you can tell that their torsos are a little thinner as well as as their arms and everything like that. And it's one of those things where you could probably also show a Titan and kind of make that impression too. But I think seeing this in the characters and kind of getting an idea of that from just looking at just a normal character, I feel like that sort of it gives a more of a defined idea of how Hijime draws things and how he proportions his characters, because I think with Titans it's easy enough to say, oh yeah, they're lanky, they're small, they're lanky, they have like long arms, they're weird looking, and it's like, but I feel like here we got another one on another character. They're long legs, maybe thinner arms, shorter, and this might also be a little harder to see with him having a jacket on. But it feels like whenever you're looking at a character or it one of these from one of these mangas as well, I guess specifically Attack on Titan, it's like you have a body structure that looks a little more like this. It's, you know, twiggy little arms and everything like that, with with necks that are a little bit longer. And that's another thing too that I noticed in Hijime's art is that he does also kind of have characters with. I guess it just, and this might also just be maybe the fact that Eren and Armin and them are younger than some of the more adult characters in the story, but I can tell that with them, their necks can sometimes be a little bit on the thinner side, a little bit taller side. I Whereas some of the more older characters have like a girthier neck and all that stuff when they're drawn. Like he's kind of got something like that on here. Yeah, good old girth, girth man, neck, beard, neck man. Basically, basically you can tell. Like that's kind of how the characters look. Whereas I feel like if you were drawing just a normal character, their legs I don't feel like would be, and maybe I'm just going off of and referencing off of how I draw, maybe. So maybe this is not as much of a, but I feel like body wise, the legs are gonna maybe be about right there more than anything. Well, maybe my artwork is the epitome of bad. What is it? What am I trying to? Maybe my artwork is bad at anatomy. Like that looks like Hijime, but then this also looks like, you know, mine. It's like I feel like that's, to me, what most body types are gonna look like. Like, while there's more of an exaggerated lankiness to how the body types are in something like this. Yes, and that's, and it can depend on characters and stuff like that. Because I mean, you got your typical, a middle-aged character is gonna still be a middle-aged character might be, normal sized and everything like that, but then and then a younger character is gonna be more lanky and all that stuff with a lot thinner neck and everything like that. Then an older person is gonna probably be a bit more in the place of shorter. They're gonna be a little bit shorter. They're gonna be a little. You're gonna have a little less hair on the top of the head and everything like that. Or they're gonna be a little more frailer as far as their body type. But I feel like when it comes to like those fundamentals are more or less there in Hijime's work, but you can tell that there's a little bit more of an exaggeratedness to his work, which, and this is just this anime manga thing in a lot of ways. Here we go. Here's another good one that has this. Actually might be a really good bridge into the next section, actually. But basically, characters are lankier, or you can, it's like that they're lankier, thinner, and they're somewhat maybe a little bit taller. Like this character over here, you can definitely tell is on the definitely on the thin side. And it might also just be the costumes too that maybe give more of that, more of the body type, leaving a little less to the imagination as far as, how the character's structured and everything like that. Which that leads me to a really good second, well, second, and I can't count. Sorry, a third section. And since we've already done and faces. We have also done body shapes. Oops. Next, I think would be a good place to go is the 1 to 2 page spreads, and that, of course, is, like I said, good springing off point here, because this is also a really good like 2 page spread, because you get all of your characters. This is the point at which we see every single one of our characters taking the salute and everything, and basically you get a full spread of pretty much everyone. There may be a few characters missing, but these are like our main cast and everything, and that's basically, and you get it in a nice big old spread. I mean, and usually a lot of times when you have a big 2 page spread, you're gonna usually have a big moment in that, or maybe you're trying to show a sense of scale and everything with that. So like for here, this is one of those things where it's a big spread for a big character moment. Like this is a moment that the author wants you to be paying attention to and wants you to be looking at where you have and have, let's say we have one for a sense of scale. Oh, ooh, oh, yeah, just kidding. And there's nothing to show. Oh, oh. But yeah, but basically, this is a good example of a 2 page spread here that they use it is, and basically this is to show a sense of scale. It's like now, well, and what's it's kind of interesting about this one is that it is a 2 page spread, but it could just as easily work as a 1 page spread and gives you every bit of information that you need in the panel and everything like that. So basically, you have let's say let's cover that up. You have your character running away in one thing, the fear in his eyes and everything, as well as all as the motion in his horse and everything. And there's a sense of tension. You're seeing all of that in one big page, and you're meant to focus in on the emotions of this moment. But then, what's kind of neat about it is that you have the other side too, which is you're basically seeing now camera's flipped, so you would be reading from this page to this page if you were just doing it normally. But basically, in this page, you have covering that you have a sense of scale as far as how big the Titans are in this universe. There's you have the house, you have the Titan, but then you have a horse in the distance, and this is showing the scale of the characters versus the Titan, and you're even getting a set. You're getting every bit of information as far as what's going on in the scene. Titan's running, they're moving this way, and they're moving into this next panel, and then you're getting that information as far as the tone of the scene and everything like that, the fear, the tension, and he's seeing what's going on in the background and reacting to that. And so you're you're getting two two big 1 page panels here in one big open spread like this. And you get a lot of different stuff like that. And there's a lot of different examples of how Hijime uses the big panels and stuff like that, and the big pages to be able to kind of get stuff across. Like this next one. This one is a good example of just another scale thing. This is a little less of Hijime having two different 1 page spreads combining into one, but this is just this is a big spread, and you're getting basically scale being shown here. So it's like you have a forest here. And I'll kind of fold that up a bit to where you can see it better. So basically you got a nice giant forest. The trees are massive. They're thick. They're thick. You got your character walking across a plain of grass as we're going from bottom looking up and everything, and as you go up further in the tree, it gets thinner and thinner upwards. You're showing how big this forest is in comparison to our characters, and kind of the playing field in which the characters can fight and could be fighting in a later moment. And that's how Hijime is showing a sense of scale through the panels and stuff like that. And this might be a little less art style related, but this is more comic structure and storytelling, visual storytelling, and kind of being shown through here. It's a good example of visual storytelling being shown to us through the medium of a comic or a manga, where we're getting using the medium of a 2-page spread to be able to show you this sort of thing. And then we got another one over here that's pretty good. And this is showing in almost 3 things actually. So we have, and this will lead us into another section. But before we do that, break down the page. So we have literally 3 different things going on here at once. We have basically, we have scale being shown. Our characters are small. Titan is big. As well as how big she is in comparison to the rest of the forest. But we also have, you know, the second side of the page here. So starting here, we're seeing action going on here, and then we're seeing reaction, action, reaction, and we're seeing our character reacting to everything that's going on this side of the page. And of course, the third thing, I said there was 3, is motion, action, effects. We're having these things being shown in this page too, because the action that's going on in this page, and the effects and motion being shown in how the Titan is throwing something down, or throwing her fist down on the ground, and we're seeing that sense of motion being portrayed through the hatchy line work and everything. And we're seeing dirt and then things getting kicked up from the ground when it, and with the might that the character is hitting the ground at. We're seeing that in this, which is, it's using 3 different things to portray this moment and make it feel so much bigger than if it was just, you know, your standard comic page split into like 3 or 4 different panels and all that. Like for instance, we got there's another page in here that kind of shows the same sense of motion. Like we got motion going on here. We have reaction and everything like that. And this is still a good show of action, reaction, and things like that. But of course, you're getting it in what's basically 3 different panels, 3 different pictures. There's 3 different shots if you're thinking of it in the sense of a movie and all that. You're getting this action in multiple shots. While with the one here, you're getting all of that in one giant picture, and all the techniques as far as double page spread and motion, as well as scale, like all of this is working in tandem with one another to give you this just big bombastic scene that's going on. It's something that I feel like, while you could do that sort of thing in film, there is something different about you know, having the scene go on and then you flip the page and then bam, it just opens up. Like that page flip just opens up the scene, and you get this almost like a painting in a sense, and just the composition of characters there's in the shot just sort of have this just there's so much going on. It's all happening all at once, and you're seeing it in this just big, monumentous shot. It reminds me of, I want to say, the closest thing that I've seen that to in a movie. The closest I've seen in a movie to a shot like this is probably Avengers Endgame, where you have every character going into battle, and you have this big panoramic shot of all of the characters going into battle. You and different things going on all in one shot, and you could do that this sort of thing in that too. I mean, that's a good example of it being done there. But then there's but what I feel like a movie doesn't have like that is that initial page flip. There's just something to being able to flip a page and then bam, everything open up. That just, you don't have that in movies necessarily, and that's just what kind of makes makes an art medium like this so interesting, that you can do that kind of thing and just make something as simple as a page flip surprising whenever you're not expecting. And it also comes down to a lot of repetition, and it's a like a method, like you can see this in music too. It's like it's this idea of repetition and then something different coming out of nowhere, and it just boom, it just there's just something about that just completely feels different. So it's like page of panels, page of panels. You can even see the panels almost getting bigger and bigger and bigger before, bam, you get this big, just wide angle here, and it's an effect that you really only get through reading a comic, reading a manga, and everything like that. And it's so neat. It's such a unique experience that I feel like Hijime does and has exceptionally well. Let's see, which, and I said that one of these things would be leading into the next part of this, which that next part, going back to the lesson plan, and and is, let's see, actually kind of leads into two things. So we got motion and effects. And that is interesting. And this actually kind of gets into something that I think would be good to actually draw in a lot of ways. So, yes, another piece of paper out here. And I'll flip to to an example I have in here of motion and effects. So, a good, I think, show of effects in the unique way that Hijime draws this. So we have stuff on fire there, and the way that he draws flames and fire and effects and things like this is that the fire itself is not just, you're not just, drawing, you know, I might even just use a pen for this, because this just would make more sense to pen draw this. So, and this is more something I do as far as when I'm drawing fire, is it's just, your typical, just a flame. But the way that Hijime does this is that I think is so fascinating as well, is that it's not just, light. Like, it's not just a drawn flame. It's Let me just hold that down there. Like basically, it's his flames are like hatching lines, and not all of them are even connected. It's like you just have these really just rough hatching lines, and the difference and the different, I guess, like there's certain spots in there where they're darker and than others, giving this almost like shadows to the flame in a lot of ways. So it's like you basically are like showing a sense of depth to the flame itself. And you can see that depth in how dark and even scratchier and hatchier that he can get with the way that a fire is shown. And you can see that here too. Basically, when you're looking at the flames, it's like you can tell that there's spots there that to give it a sense of volume and shape. It's like he draws things darker and gives more hatching lines and everything in there to give the fire not just a flat look. It actually has shape through the hatching lines and everything like that. And then everything in the inside, of course, it's like you're not going to see anything inside of a fire unless you're really close to it. But like far away, it's like everything inside the fire is hatch lines and stuff like that. So like if you were to draw, like let's say there's a log in here. There, basically, you just would you could probably get away with drawing the outline of a log, but then you'd probably just do these little hatching lines, things like this. They're not as defined because realistically you're not gonna be able to see that in the fire. You're not gonna see the logs in the fire perfectly. But you are gonna still see the general shape, and he uses the hatching lines like that to give even shape to things inside the fire, or it's like you could tell it's on fire, but you could still see what's in the fire, and you could see its shape and everything. And that was one of the pages that I thought was kind of neat in how he did that. And there's so much you could say about that sort of stuff. And another effect that I think is really interesting is motion. And this definitely is probably my absolute favorite thing about how Hijime draws. It's like and the same thing I love about Fujimoto or Kentaro Miura is how they use hatching lines to give you a sense of motion. It's not just, like I feel like you could have someone. Let's see, where do I want to draw that? You could have someone doing a kick. So like let's say person with their leg, you could do just a normal kick. Maybe have a line or two there. You get a little bit of that motion, but it feels like whenever you're looking at a kick in something like this is a really good example of one, and you get the general shape of the leg, but that's all hatching lines and everything. It's just the general shape made up of scraggly lines and everything, and you're seeing everything from, it's like in the, let's see, right here, it's like you're not seeing just shadows and everything like that. Even the shadows here, they're scraggly. That's like you're getting that sense, the sense of Eren getting kicked. and his body moving and contorting in a certain way. You're getting that motion in a way that's way more dynamic. Like that's just kind of eh. But then you have, let's say, let's do that again. But so you're getting the general outline. And you're probably gonna get more of that outline on the top there. There. But then you're getting more scraggle, you're getting more, and even the image is being shaded with these with lines. So darker up top, or in places where the light, you're using the black space is to show you're using black space to show, of course, the curvature of the foot and everything like that. But then you're using the lines to be able to show it, like think of it like watching slowed down footage. There's blur in a lot of motion, but that's because you're seeing that one motion in less frames versus if you were doing it slower, where it would take more frames. That's less information on screen, and there's less stuff visible. And then when you slow down anything that's in motion, you're gonna see blurring. You're gonna see less detail happening because your camera's not picking up that data. It's the same with drawing. It's like there's less, you're seeing less defined things, and of course that brings it on to the author to have to find ways to give dimension and give a sense of volume and shading and space and everything, while also having to capture that motion. And of course, like I said, motion, and there's less details. So it's like, how do you get over that dilemma? Hatching lines is one of those ways that I feel like Hijime gets that down. And this is something that might be a bit of a doy, if you've seen other things that, like other mangas and stuff like that. But like, okay, here's another example. There's hatch lines here. The horses are a lot more scraggly. They're just not, they're not nearly as neatly drawn, but in motion, and there's gonna be blur. There's gonna be details lost in the midst of the motion. So it's like, so Hijime captures that through his hatching lines and everything like that. And you get that sense of pace, that sense of motion. Then, and let's see if we got another one. Motion weight. There we go. And like, for instance, in action scenes and stuff like this, this is a really good example of a punch. You can see that the lines themselves, they're thick, rough, and just janky, but it's that way because it's in motion, and less defined, but it looks like, if I was moving my hand around like this, you still see the general like shape and an outline of my hand, but you're seeing less details going on. You're even seeing through my hand in a lot of ways, and it looks like that because it's going so fast. And there's even some general, like the shadows are almost dragging along a little bit. Whenever I'm moving, and you kind of see that there too. You know, Hajime uses these crazy hatching lines and stuff like that, and this is something that I do notice here versus what I see in Fujimoto's work, er, er, is an increased thickness to the lines, and there's more shadow involved here. Like for a panel like this, it's still daylight in this scene, but there's just a sense of of dark and shadow in here that defines things like these lines right here. Those are ribs. Then you're showing the muscle structure of the Titan and everything like that. Yeah, there's an intense usage of shadow in these panels that I noticed that Hijime uses a lot. Uh, which I think is a good place to go next. Basically, effects, body shape, faces, motion, spreads, outlines. That's another thing that I feel like Hijime does. It's in his artwork that I don't see in others. Like he uses a similar sense of motion and line work that someone like Fujimoto uses. Is granted, it's definitely you can tell in the way that faces are done. Are done. It's like it's definitely a bit more. I guess it's definitely more neat. Now, granted, if you look up close to like there's a piece right here on the lip. That might be a little hard to see, but which might be a good place for me to actually draw it in the face. But basically, he's got his chin, and these are the lips. Which, like, there's a little bit of his lip and there's a line right here that kind of just barely goes off of there a bit. And there's even some lines where it's like where when you look up close on it, it's two lines instead of one, or there's a little bit of a a gap and an opening there. And before you get to his nose and all that. There's Hijime still has a roughness to his sketch and art and even like his mouth here. Here, it's gonna probably look a little more. It's gonna look a little rougher on my end because I'm not quite as good of an artist, if even up to that par. But you can even see that for something like this, there's still a roughness and just it's not as clean as you would be getting if you were drawing this on a sketch program or something like that, where the lines can definitely look more clean and everything like that. But you can tell that Hijime has that same roughness that a Fujimoto might have. Granted, Fujimoto is a lot more rough, I feel like, which that's why I like his artwork. But Hijime kind of has that too, to a certain extent, and it kind of stands out against other mangas that might have a bit of a cleaner line work and all that stuff. I feel like Hijime very likely uses a brush, like either just a straight paint brush or maybe even a brush pen, something like this, where the lines are going to be a little more thicker on one side but then thinner on the other. And this is also something that I've found that artists will do too, as far as in digital too. And there's artists that have been able to mimic that kind of fluidity and everything like that. So it's not even just a real materials versus, it's not even really a real materials versus, you know, digital or anything like that. But granted, it's a place of digital trying to mimic the real, and to a certain extent there too. But it's something that you could tell the tool in which he's using here is a physical pen, ink, potentially even an inkwell to be able to get those kinds of lines, and it's just it's fascinating. It's like you even and it's like and you just have just that kind of sketchy line work and shape and everything like that to it. And even here too, it's like you have an intense use of shadows and stuff like that. And then that's even more apparent in the latter half, and kind of somewhere in the middle. Even during a scene that's really, it's still intense, but it's not as um. And this might also even be a place where maybe the later stuff, where the artist started out with one kind of style where it's a little bit more, like you can definitely tell that there's thicker outlines and things. Like there's a lot more black used in spots here, and even far away panels still look like they're still on the thick side as far as the actual pen being used. But it's one of those things that I go back and forth as far as whether to say that it's this is the starting point, and then the next couple volumes he got thinner with his line work, and or whether or not it's like I go back and forth between that and saying it's a use of it's just an intense use of shadow. I think I'm leaning more towards it's just a more intense use of shadow, and maybe even in the earlier volumes of the series, there's definitely more thicker outlines and stuff used in certain spots. Although it kind of just depends, I guess, at the place in the manga that you're at, or it might even just be, or some of that could even also just be a way that it was printed or something like that. And now the other thing that Hijime has that I think, um, and this is, I mean, he's probably used this sort of technique in other manga. I'd have to see what other stuff that he's specifically done. But the uncanny is used pretty frequently, at least in Attack on Titan, and that is definitely where the Titans are. Their designs come into play. And we got some more motion there, but there's a sense of the scary and uncanny in these designs, and this is where you see the more shadowed, darkened, hatchier lines being used in there to sort of give the Titans this sort of distant but familiar quality to them. And even with Titans like this one, without giving too many spoilers away for anyone that hasn't read Attack on Titan or even watched the anime. For those who haven't like read the manga or watched the anime, it's just like, but it's like even here, it's like you could tell. For this one, it's a little bit more defined and a little less and more direct in how and even in the way that it's shadowed and everything like that, and the way that the eyes have more presence there. But that one has still this sort of uncanniness and just strangeness to it, where this one where they have less, where these Titans have less personality to them. Like they have personalities, but they have enough personality to feel familiar, but there's still this sense of distance in how they're drawn that just makes them completely just feel foreign. It's a mixture of the foreign, but familiar. Oh, one other place is that of motion specifically. I know we're on the topic of uncanny, but I think I might go into a more miscellaneous category here. But this is pretty neat as far as the use of motion. And Hijime, not only is this a place where he uses darkness and the chaoticness of lines to show dimension and everything like that, but as well as motion, but you also get this sense of flexibility and warp to characters to sort of give the perspective a more outlandish and almost more fluidic um feel to it. So like you literally have like this panel. This is the first page. That's the second one. Remember, flipped around. But basically, it's like you have them rushing at each other. Him moving in this sort of with the foot going more towards the camera and being bigger in the perspective. But then you have the hand coming back, and then bam, you get this just amazing shot of just the fist just going right through the back of the dude's neck, and you just get all of this, even the blood too. It's like another effect of blood and liquid it, um going in fast motion. It doesn't look like, you know, what you would think a liquid would look like. It's not rounded or anything like that. It's just fast, angular, moving, and it's just going boom. Like where you might like another place of drawing this sort of stuff. So like, and so basically instead of just drawing a liquid, little things like that, like blood, 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 blood. What? No, wait. Blood. That's not blood. Well, that's blood. That's that's doolb, 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 doolb. But yeah, blood. You have blood splatter, but then in things of motion, like you could draw a blood splatter like that, and it would look fine. It's like that's probably a lot of times I would probably draw something like that. Or you could go even faster, and it looks more, and you can see one's freeze framed, one's actually in motion, and it's one of those things where that's where you're getting Hijame's sense of motion coming through. So freaking cool. And even here too, it was another effect. You have the Titan smoking and kind of breaking down, and even here it's like you even see the smoke billowing doesn't just look like, rounded smoke. It's hatching lines and everything like that, and you just see it flowing out there. There's a sense of motion and energy in it that you just don't see in I feel like other stuff. It's just a really creative way to show that off. Because like you could just simply just draw someone falling. And you could simply draw something on fire. You could see something, draw something that's clear. But there's something about Hijame's way of using lines and hatching and stuff like that that just straight up it just feels like it gives it an energy. There's freeze frame versus energy. I think that's the best way that I can describe it. I have it. You have a drawing in motion, and then you have a drawing freeze framed. Hijime does things with energy and motion, and it's so amazing. There's so much detail in this, and it's crazy too because it's like it's not really anything I would have originally thought too heavily about at one point in time. Because I remember reading this all the way back in high school, and that's been that's been an almost a decade. But but I remember reading these back in high school, and I was engaged in the story. I loved the action and everything like that, but I didn't really think of these things, the fluidity, the motion, the way that lines are drawn. But I guess, and that's kind of what I love about doing these style studies and everything like that, is that they feel like it kind of gives me an ability to just to look closely at something and just be able to fully appreciate like what an artist does, because every artist does something different. Even if most manga can sometimes, and not even really most manga. I mean, I think there's a sizable amount of manga that does kind of, they all pull from a variety of sources, but they can also sometimes feel like they have a samey quality to it, and and that's from a distance. It's like that's one of those things where it can feel like that if you're just kind of looking in, looking in from the outside. It's like, but I feel like when you actually sit down with stuff like this where you're actually, and you're looking at every line, looking at every detail, you're just, and you're seeing the artist's work on display. It just gives you this appreciation for it, and for the fine art details. And I think that's, if there's anything that I want to do with this sort of series, is it's give a spotlight to different people's works, and show people, hey, there's something more here. This person, it might look, they might have a similar anime face, but look at this, but look at the way they do motion, or this artwork might look completely different because it's an outline. They may be drawing the exact same kind of face and body type as every other manga, but because they have a a thick outline around them, it brings a whole new characteristic to things. And that's just kind of what I want to show and highlight through this style study kind of series and everything like that. And I feel like Hijime a Isayama, I think it's Hijime Isayama. I'm yeah. Let's put a big old Hijime Isayama on the name thing, cause I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, it's like his work. I would have just thought it was at one point. I would have thought at one point that it's like other anime, other manga, whatnot. But honestly, there's a lot of stuff about it that you could put this in a same style threshold as something like Berserk, where Berserk being probably some of my favorite artwork in manga, and even Junji Ito's stuff, like they have quality. Like I think all manga has the same qualities that others do. It's just how they use it and how they implement it, and that's just what makes different creators so unique. And even with movies and stuff too, like movies have a lot of similar qualities, but there's just a way that this director, this cinematographer, this writer, writes, visualizes this thing, and it feels like it gives it a whole different feel than something else. And you really only get to notice that when you just really deep dive and study the style. Oh, oh. Cut, right, title, here we go. But no. In all seriousness, it's but it's like when you study someone's style, it's like makes things it makes things that from afar seem similar feel different, and it gives it a whole new feel and meaning and everything. And that's just cool. I like that. Well, honestly, I might do I might do a more refined version of this one of these days. I might take the footage here and maybe try to maybe shorten it, make it a little more and kind of concrete things in a little bit more. But I think for this stream, I think this is pretty good. I think I like doing these streams for the style studies a little bit more because I feel like I basically have an hour or two to just sit down, flip through the book, uh, show it to the camera, and then bring it over here and just draw it. Right, and just kind of show you guys in a more direct way, I think, like what these authors have and have to offer. And I think that's cool. It's like and I think it'll definitely make making the shorter version of this video a little bit easier because I can kind of just get everything that I feel like would, it's like, what is it like, it's gonna feel more like a rambling mess maybe in the moment, but then I think once it's all hunkered down and edited down, I think it'll be a lot more more beneficial to watch for someone who's just kind of just wanting to just kind of get the spark notes of things. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna end stream here. Oop, there go there's my motion again. The ocean of the motion. Ocean. Yeah, I'm literally having to I feel like whenever I bring my little meat fingers on camera and camera view, eyesight, whatever you want to call it. It's my eyes, but yeah, like I feel like whenever I get into that mode, my body just kind of tenses up. It just kind of, it's almost like my spirit leaving my body and then coming in over here and be like, oh bam. Yeah. So if you don't see me moving very much, that's why. It's just the limitations of this model and body and all that stuff right now. But I'll figure out some stuff to kind of make it a little more interesting instead of just being, you know, me either going blah 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 blah, or me being just a literal video on a screen and not actually, being controlled in real time like this, using my old trickery. But yeah, I see things getting better from here, and I think this is a good format and good style of how to do things, and I think that's just gonna be how I do things here from now on. Alrighty, if that's, I guess if I don't really got much else to really say here on honestly. Either, yeah, kind of rambly right now, but honestly, I think I'll get better as this whole new format of things kind of gets more concrete and everything. I'll try to be maybe a little more prepared. But I think, for what I had going here, not too bad. And I had plenty of stuff to kind of talk about as far as with artsy fartsy shizness and all that shizness and all that. My book's back in here, and my adult coloring book right there. Alrighty, I'll see y'all on the next video. Peace. And always remember, the door is always open at the Doom Room Bebop. Take care, guys.